Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Vault, a podcast devoted to exploring the secrets to building wealth. I am today's host, Nick, and today we'll be discussing the pillars of wealth. So, what exactly is wealth? Well, most people would define it as having lots of money or being financially independent. Most people say that being wealthy means having a certain number of millions in the bank. Traditionally, wealth is considered to be the value of your net worth, how much money you have. But that may be a narrow perception of wealth in today's world, as we all search for life balance and meaning beyond a dollar amount in the bank. Many years ago, I encountered a young man named John with a very different view of the world than most people. He often worked for only a few weeks or months every year in difficult, undesirable, but high-paying jobs, so that he could then spend a year or several years off, traveling in inexpensive places like Latin America and Thailand, writing and living simply. He lived much like Henry David Thoreau. At the time we worked together overseas, he and I discussed the concept of 3 legs of a stool, those legs being money, knowledge, and health. Basically, as young people roaming the world in search of meaning, John's 3 pillars stood for freedom and power to do as one wished. All 3 legs, money, knowledge, and health, were necessary to live unhindered. Therefore, if one had knowledge and health but lacked money, that person could not freely do as he wished in life, as lack of money was a hindrance to freedom of action. Likewise, if one had money and knowledge but lacked health, that person was impaired or restricted from living freely. And of course, if one had money and health but lacked knowledge, that person was held back from reaching his full potential. That was nearly 20 years ago, and I focused on those 3 pillars as I ventured out into the world. And over time, I came to learn that these 3 legs of the stool equated to 3 pillars that I could use to define wealth. Money was only one of the necessary and foundational pillars. Even with immense amounts of money, if you don't have knowledge and health, you truly cannot be thought to be wealthy. I recently read a book called The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom, a Stanford graduate, entrepreneur, investor, and writer. In his book, Bloom enumerates the 5 types of wealth as financial wealth, time wealth, physical wealth, social wealth, and mental, intellectual, and spiritual wealth. This broader view expands on the legs of the stool I mentioned, and depending on what concepts you value, can potentially round out the pillars of wealth. Bloom's book focused not just on monetary wealth, but overall lifestyle wealth. For example, financial wealth means having enough money and income, or means to live comfortably and achieve your goals. Physical wealth means maintaining good health and having the energy to live the way you want. Time wealth means freedom to control your own schedule and pursue the goals you want. Social wealth is building and maintaining strong relationships and a positive reputation in your community and profession. And mental and spiritual wealth means having a sense of purpose, being curious to learn about the world around you, and seeking inner peace. The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom is an essential book for anyone wanting to truly understand the concept of wealth. Somewhat like with the 3 legs of the stool, one can function at least reasonably well while lacking somewhat in one of the 5 types of wealth just mentioned. But Sahil Bloom emphasizes a balance of all 5 types of wealth in order to focus on a fulfilling lifestyle, not just excelling with respect to one type of wealth or another. He values all types of wealth combined versus being heavily weighted in one type of wealth. This means possibly giving up greater financial wealth, or otherwise, for better balance in life, better relationships, better health, etc. In essence, truly wealthy people do not solely think in terms of dollar signs. One powerful example from the book is Bloom's mention of Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world. Would you trade places with Warren Buffett if you could? Well, approaching 100 years old, Warren Buffett lacks time wealth and likely physical wealth. Time is the only non-renewable asset, and health is exponentially harder to get back as we get older. So, while a young person may idealize someone like Warren Buffett's financial wealth, it would not be wise to trade places with him. So far, immense amounts of money have failed to bring forth immortality or a working time machine. One can only hope. As such, a generally accepted view of the pillars of wealth focuses on comprehensive, long-term prosperity, not just monetary wealth. But wealth definitely has a financial aspect, as having money usually creates freedom and wealth in other aspects of life, such as time, social, and physical wealth. Money in the bank, investment assets, or financial stock is one aspect of personal financial wealth. Financial flow, income, and cash flow is another. But health, mind, and community or social wealth are all major components of larger lifestyle wealth and balance. Most people naturally have a goal of prosperity and balance in life. But often, many people focus on financial wealth to the exclusion or detriment of other pillars, especially at the beginning of our careers. The goal is money, but as we get older and wiser, and hopefully more financially wealthy, more and more people are focusing on the wider pillars and balanced wealth, learning that financial wealth alone does not necessarily bring fulfillment. If we mention Maslow's hierarchy of needs in this discussion, which is a psychological construct that we will explore further in future episodes, basic needs must be met across all the pillars of wealth before moving up the hierarchy into more aspirational forms of existence. If a solid foundation is lacking, one cannot achieve higher and higher levels of success, as the pyramid eventually crumbles by ignoring basic needs. For example, one cannot run a massively successful business enterprise if one cannot afford to pay the rent. Making progress in all 5 pillars of wealth will help to establish the best foundation for future success. While this podcast is focused on building financial wealth, we will certainly address all the pillars of wealth, as each one ultimately adds value toward building financial wealth, and financial wealth often flows into other types of wealth. We will discuss the 3 legs of the stool: money, knowledge, and health. And indeed, we will incorporate the 5 types of wealth enumerated by Sahil Bloom in his book. Join us for the next installment of The Vault. This episode, that was focused on the pillars of wealth, has hopefully broadened your understanding of wealth beyond simply financial wealth. And as we focus on building financial wealth, we will expand upon these other concepts as we seek to build wealth across all aspects of our lives. Thank you for listening.